All right, everyone. Welcome in to the Insta Review podcast. This is episode 13. I can't believe how fast this year is going. We are getting so close into the playoffs. We're in December now. It's our first official episode in December, and which means it is full-on playoff time. It's playoff races everywhere. I mean, the AFC in general is just an absolute madhouse with all of the potential scenarios that could play out over the next couple of weeks. But we're here to take you through it here on the Insta Review podcast. My name is Nicholas Hill. Joining me is Oscar Orengo, Conor Kennedy, and Leon Taryan. Guys, I am so excited to see where the rest of this season is going to go.
Yeah, it's definitely been a wild. What am I saying? It's been a wild ride, especially in the AFC. And let's get right into this, man.
Absolutely, because we have a lot of things to discuss this evening in reaction to what was a very busy week 13. Let's start with some hot takes here. Leon, I know you got to go to a game on Sunday. Tell the people about your experience and what you took away from it.
So it was a fun experience to watch the game in Miami, first football game, but wow, the Giants couldn't even score a touchdown. The only person that really had a good contribution offensively was their kicker, Graham Gano, even though he did miss one field goal. But the defense kept them in the game. Mike Glennon he started off, it wasn't bad. He converted a lot of the third down passes, but drops by Saquon Barkley, Evan Engram. And then in the second half, they just looked beat down. Tua Tagovailoa was just completing every pass into tight windows. Jalen Waddle is chasing history with trying to get 101 receptions to break the rookie record set by Anquan Bolden. And Jalen Phillips on the defensive side, 2 straight sacks on Mike Glennon. We need a new offensive line. We need a new quarterback. We need a new coaching staff. I think the special teams is fine. The receivers are fine. The key players are fine. The defense is fine. But, wow, quarterback play, even if Daniel Jones was there, they would still lose.
Yeah, and the fact that you guys are going to have to start Jake Fromm more than likely this week, I mean, it just shows how far he's fallen. Of course, obviously, if you're from the South, you remember Jake Fromm as the long-time starting quarterback at the University of Georgia, almost won a national championship. But many remember him for perhaps holding the Georgia Bulldogs back, and now he might get a shot here in the NFL to start. But yeah, if all the other issues that they have, I don't know how much success they're going to have. I mean, Connor, Oscar, I mean, it feels like Joe Judge's time is quickly coming to a close.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of a dysfunctional team. We've been saying all along it should be a rebuilding year, and I think that's what it is. They got to figure out what they can do with Saquon Barkley, try and figure out what they got to do with Zach Wilson. So those are all, we'll see what they figure out. It's been a shitty season, and they got to start looking towards next season for sure.
Yeah, I know Daniel Jones. Like he's been kind of iffy. I mean, he's been definitely getting better this year for sure. But at this point, I think it might be too little, too late, and especially with a new coaching staff coming in. You might as well like draft a new QB and kind of do what like the Jets did with Sam Darnold. Try and ship him off to another place that's had some questions at the quarterback position, because I feel like with Daniel Jones, like there is still some upside, and you could at least get some decent picks out of him this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly sure what team would want to take on Daniel Jones. I mean, it feels like a Mitchell Trubisky situation for sure in terms of what you could potentially get out of him. He'll be a backup somewhere, but I seriously doubt he will be a serious contender for a starting job anywhere in the league. All right, Connor, you were also at a game. You were at Patriots and Buffalo and the Bills last night on Monday Night Football. And man, just watching that on TV, I was glad I was inside in a warm room because it looked pretty rough out there.
Yeah, the weather sucked yesterday. You know who else sucked? The Bills. Because you know why? The Bills are absolute frauds. There, I said it. That Jaguars loss, maybe that Colts loss too. Like I gave them the benefit of the doubt, but like things were looking iffy. now we're hitting the panic button. I don't think we'll win the AFC East anymore. Because you know who came back? Bill Belichick. The dark side is winning again. And you know what? Patriots are going to Super Bowl! There. All right. Now that I got that out of my system, the Bills' run defense, they sucked last night. I know Mike Hyde and Jordan Poyer might get mad at that, which, I mean, I understand why. But, you know, apart from that Damian Harris touchdown run, they did hold the Patriots running offense to less than 4 yards a carry. But at the same time, that was the Patriots' whole offense, and that's what won them the game. Mac Jones only threw 3 passes. He completed 2 of them for a total of like 19 yards. Absolutely laughable. And this Bills offense like couldn't really get anything going. I don't know why our offensive coordinator, this offensive staff, keeps trying to run the ball, trying to, you know, create that running game identity for this team when we can't run the ball. Our interior O-line sucks. Our running backs like can't overcome how trash our interior offensive line is, so they can't break out for huge runs. I don't know why you keep running it up the middle with Zach Moss when the same thing is going to happen every single week. He's only going to like gain like 2 yards. Maybe he'll be held to the line of scrimmage, and then you're just going to be punting on 3rd down. And Sean McDermott's also pretty conservative too. Like even after that AFC Championship game, where him being conservative in terms of kicking field goals instead of going for touchdowns hurt them. It hurt them in this game too. I mean, one of the times, you know, they tried to kick a field goal, but they missed it. Usually Bass is pretty automatic. I understand going for points over touchdowns, but like when you're at 4th and 7 on the 20-yard line, you're about to get into the end zone. The offense is doing way better than the defense for the Bills. And you're down. Like you got to go for it. Like this is not the same Patriots from last year. This Patriots team is loaded now. So not going for it, I understood why, but I like really questioned it. And it's going to be a struggle for the Bills to even make the playoffs when like a month or 2 ago, we could have inked them in as number 1 in the AFC and Super Bowl contenders. So I see us like probably going 10-7 at best. I highly doubt that we'll win out the rest of our games. You know, we got Carolina, Atlanta, and the Jets. We should, you know, win all those games, but we're playing the Buccaneers next week, and we're playing the Patriots in Foxborough on December 26th. I have serious doubts about this team, and I think a lot of people do as well.
I do kind of want to ask you about the defense because obviously the Patriots decided to not throw the football last night. Mac Jones had 3 passes, very close to tying the record of least amount of passes thrown in the game without and winning, which was 2, which I believe happened at Buffalo in like 1973. I think that's what they said during the broadcast. It was pretty insane to watch because I was watching the Manning cast, and Peyton was just losing his mind because, you know, he wanted to analyze Mac Jones throwing the ball and he just couldn't. And of course, after the game, a reporter asked, I believe it was Micah Hyde, and I forget who else was up on the stand, and the reporter asked, "Are you embarrassed that they ran as well as they did?" And of course, obviously, they took offense to that question. What were your thoughts on how the Bills responded to that just absurd offensive game plan that the Patriots came out with?
I mean, like you said, like the Patriots were just running the ball pretty much every snap. We haven't really seen a game plan like that since like the 70s. Yeah, I mean, like a weakness of the Bills defense kind of got exposed in that Colts game. I attributed a lot of that to Starlu Lele, our run stuffing 1-tech D tackle, being out for that game due to being on the COVID list, but he came back for this game. And he wasn't that effective. He was better than Vernon Butler, but that's really not saying much. Maybe it's because he's still getting over COVID, but like, I don't know. Like our D tackle depth with the Bills like isn't all that great. And also our linebacking core didn't really do that much to stop the run as well. We rely a lot on Tremaine Edmonds, our linebacker, middle linebacker to stop the run, and he didn't do all that much last night either. I think we had to start Tyrell Dodson at linebacker too because of AJ Klein being out with the COVID list. Maybe I could attribute a little bit of that. But despite injuries, despite COVID, I think the Bills' defense is figured out. If you can run the ball, then you can easily beat this team. And I don't really know what else they could do at this point. Maybe they can improve it like a little bit, but I think that's the main reason why I really do not see the Bills like making much noise in the playoffs if they even get to January football. That's just my opinion.
Right, and kind of open up, bringing Oscar and Leon into this. When we look at the Patriots side of this, obviously to find a way to get this thing out on the road, with such an unconventional game plan, it just kind of shows the Patriots just week to week, they find different ways to win games. It seems like they could either air it out if they wanted to, ground it if they wanted to, meanwhile always having that defense to rely on. I mean, right now, to me, they might be the best team in the league, just in terms of the malleability. And of course, that all goes back to Bill Belichick, who is proving himself this year. Because obviously, all the questions last year were, it's pretty a question. All the questions basically were, you can't win without Tom Brady. But now people are really beginning to reassess those initial assumptions they have about the Patriots. Do we think the Patriots are about to take the 1 seed in the AFC?
I think so. I think I've said this before. I'll say it again. They're the best at following a game plan. If they don't need to pass the ball, they won't pass the ball. They'll stick to the run, and they just find ways to win. 7 straight wins with a rookie quarterback. Imagine how crazy that would be. Even if they don't win the Super Bowl, just to have Mac Jones start as a rookie for the team. This team has a very bright future.
Yeah, I think they have a really good chance of being the 1 seed and finishing that way. They only have about 2 really competitive games coming up with the Rams and the Colts. And the Cowboys could be a fun game too to watch. And we'll see how that offense looks when they get there. But I think I agree with Leon. I think they definitely have a chance to get to the Super Bowl. They're definitely one of those teams, like you said, Nick, that shows different sides to it. I don't know if they have the depth like the Cardinals do, but I don't know how many teams that are going to the Super Bowl need to have even if you're fill-in quarterback to get you games type of situation. But I think the Patriots they're gonna finish strong for sure.
Yeah, so I'll say this. So the last 4 games for the Patriots, so they have a bye week this week. They go to Indianapolis on Saturday the 18th, host the Bills, then you have the Jaguars and at Dolphins. The Dolphins are playing really, really well right now. But I do think the Patriots are a lot better than them. The Colts, to me, are their toughest game. I think Jonathan Taylor will provide them a challenge. I'm really curious to see how Bill Belichick game plans for him. But what I'll imagine is they'll do everything they can to take the ball out of his hands and force Carson Wentz to beat them. And Carson Wentz has played really well at times, but can you trust him in a tight situation? I just don't believe so. I don't know if I really see the Patriots losing any other games. They may lose one of these somewhere. I wouldn't be shocked if the Bills won at Foxborough. Honestly, but especially with just how unpredictable this season has been. But there is a very good shot here. The Patriots are gonna get that 1 seed. They have a very favorable path here moving forward, and I'm just curious to see what other game plans. I would love, honestly, to kind of see Belichick get a second shot at Brady, because he finally played him once. So I'm curious to see what he would do the second go around. Right now, if we saw the Buccaneers and Patriots play each other, who would we pick?
Bucks. He's got too many weapons. Who's Belichick going to neutralize? Tom Brady? That'd be his
Buccaneers.
Did he really do it?
You know what's funny? I actually saw a comment on Facebook. They're like, "Oh, it's so scripted. It's going to be Pats and Bucks in the Super Bowl." I would pick Brady because who knows how much animosity they have, because there was so much that reporters were talking about how Brady wasn't content with the Patriots organization, but that would be a great game. You have a great defense against a great quarterback. I'm not. Where is the Super Bowl located this year? You guys know?
Los Angeles is in Los Angeles.
SoFi Stadium.
That'll be a fun one, but to be honest, I see the Packers beating the Bucks in the NFC Championship. I see Packers Patriots right now.
Same. I absolutely agree. I've been on the Packers train since early on. I've had a feeling about them, but we'll see.
I was on the Ravens train also, but the past 4 games they've struggled to put up any offense, and it's actually going to be my first story I go into. And Nick, let's hear your last hot take.
Right. All right. So that my hot take, of course, Oscars, you're going to also talk about the Pats and Bills as well. So we're just kind of lumped you two in together on that one. Mike Zimmer. You deserve to be fired, my friend. Losing to the Detroit Lions in a must-win game when you needed it to remain in playoff contention. And in the way you lost it, allowing Jared Goff, who cannot win a game without Sean McVay, let him convert 2 third downs and 1 fourth down, including the game-winning play. 372 yards of offense allowed, 272 yards passing yards for the Lions, 100 rushing yards, wasting a 30 out of 40 at 340 yards and 2 touchdown performance by Kirk Cousins. It was a peak Mike Zimmer special. And Minnesota should be looking for a new coach today. I don't know why he's still employed. I know they're still in the playoff race, but losing to Detroit in that scenario is unacceptable. And he's holding the team back. Like this Mike Zimmer is a defensive coordinator. The defense is terrible for Minnesota. And if they even had half a defense, like they would be like an 8-4 team. They would be solidly in the playoffs. Their offense is really, really good. But it's just a shame. It really is. And I feel bad for Kirk Cousins because everyone's going to sit here and say, oh, he sucks. He can't win the big game. But, I mean, Kirk Cousins doesn't play defense. He can't stop the Lions. That's on Mike Zimmer. That's on the Vikings defense. And I don't know what else to say. And obviously, shout out to the Lions for finally winning a game. But it's just an embarrassing loss for the Vikings. I mean, what do y'all think about this one?
I'd say Goff finally has a respectable stat line in a game. 296 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. The Lions do have some good targets. Amon-Ra St. Brown with the game-winning catch. He's definitely someone that's going to develop into number 2 or number 3 receiver. They have TJ Hawkinson, but this team needs to rebuild. But going into the draft, there's Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau, all these guys. And what are the Lions really going to do at quarterback once the season's over? Are they going to keep Goff and have him compete with a veteran? I don't really know what they're going to do if they can't pass up any of those defensive prospects.
I think they should absolutely draft a hometown guy in Aiden Hutchinson. I've watched him against Ohio State, watched him against Iowa. Dude is dynamic. I mean, to me, he's almost as good as Chase Young coming out of college. And that might be a bit of like a crazy statement to make. But, I mean, he's having that type of impact for Michigan this year. And, when you're in a bad position like the Lions have been, you got to drive up local excitement. And what better idea would there be to draft the guy who's helping the popular college team in your area make it back to the playoffs? So that would be my suggestion to the Michigan or to the Lions GM, especially when Kayvon Thibodeau, because I've been watching Oregon some too. To me, he's not. I mean, he's obviously physically gifted, but he just doesn't have the same impact that Hutchinson does.
I think the Lions are due. Honestly, they're not a great team. I'm not gonna give them that much hype. But I remember at the beginning of the season they had a lot of rough games and they had really close games. So it finally went their way. They have good players, just kind of like what Leon said. They got DeAndre Swift. They got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's finally developing. He's actually looking like he's pretty good. You got Hawkinson. So their offense is there. They just have to figure out. They just haven't figured out how to close it, and we'll see how they do in the rest of the season. But I think I'm a little bit of a Lions fan. Hopefully they keep doing something good, but I don't think they're going to win very many games. They might have one more game, I think, left. From looking at their schedule, the Falcons maybe or the Seahawks. So they got a chance. Maybe they win one more game. We'll see how they go.
Before I go into this, I'm going to lead off by saying I'm happy for my Lake Erie bros, the Detroit Lions, for picking up a win. I will say, I know Nick, you like to say this, and I've heard this from our guy Barry McCockiner. Kirk Cousins is the anti-Tom Brady. You know, Kirk Cousins always plays pretty well. He has a great stat line, but his defense always lets him down in the most clutch moments. I mean, the defense. There was that one play where they sacked Goff, and I think they caught the ball too, but nothing ended up happening with it. And of course, the Lions scored the go-ahead touchdown. Jared Goff over to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Personally, I think the Lions could win one more game. Week 18, the Packers are coming to Ford Field. Presumably, they'll probably not have much to play for. They'll probably have already locked up the playoffs and the NFC North. So I think they'll start Jordan Love in that game. And Jordan Love is not the guy. So I think the Lions could potentially win that game. But I think that'll be their peak, beating the Vikings and beating the Packers, going 2 and I think 14-1. That would be the. No, my math's probably wrong on that. But either way, they're only winning 2 games this season. I think it's going to be really interesting in this offseason. As we all know, Jared Goff really is not the guy whatsoever. There's some studs in this draft at defensive positions. I have no clue what they're going to do at quarterback. I mean, they can't trade Goff because his contract is enormous, and he sucks. Maybe they keep him from another year and like draft another stud defensive player like Hutchinson or Thibodeau. They could draft a quarterback, Kenny Pickett. I don't know if Sam Howell's stock is that high. Matt Corral, that could be a possibility. Malik Willis out of Liberty University. Or they could trade for Daniel Jones from the New York Giants. I don't know who else would trade for Daniel Jones. So I think they'll probably just ship him off to Detroit.
Oh God, don't curse Detroit fan. They've already been through enough. I mean, it's Detroit now, the land of like quarterbacks we don't want anymore. Like, we might as well send Mitch Trubisky there too.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Mitch Trubisky to Denver.
A big trade for Russell Wilson, some draft picks. I see that.
But Russell Wilson even accept that trade though? Like, I mean, it's like, yeah, see, all right, let's go from Seattle to Detroit. Love that. But sorry to anyone who lives in Detroit. But yeah, it's a difficult situation. I mean, I think you have to prioritize the best players right now, just because there isn't great QBs. I mean, next year you're going to have guys like Bryce Young, potentially CJ Stroud in the draft, who I think are going to be top tier draft picks. I mean, if you haven't watched Bryce Young play recently, I mean, he's been unbelievable. Because I think he'll be number 1 in the draft next year. But you might just have to bite the bullet right now and go with the best players you possibly can. Maybe you trade for Jones with a low level draft pick just to get you through next year. I mean, I could see that, but yeah, I think your solution at quarterback isn't coming until 2023. And I've been saying that. And fortunately, I think there's going to be some good options out there for some of these teams who desperately need a new franchise quarterback. But any other comments on these hot takes before we move on to Leon's key stories? All right, seeing none. Leon, what do you have for us?
So probably a big upset. Well, it is a big upset. Something that caught my eye. The Steelers beat the Ravens 20-19. The Ravens obviously go for it. 2-point conversion. They could have tied the game and made it go into overtime, but no. John Harbaugh decides to take a risk. Mark Andrews cannot make the catch, and somehow the Steelers beat another top team in the league. The Ravens' performance these past 4 games has not been good. I'd say Devontae Freeman is the new star of the Ravens offense because he's the only one scoring points for them. Whether it was Lamar Jackson or Tyler Huntley, they haven't been playing well, but I still see them finding some success in the playoffs. But we're going to start with Oscar. Should Ravens fans be concerned moving forward on how their offense plays?
I think they're still developing. I think this is the year when they're trying to get Lamar Jackson to be a better pocket passer kind of quarterback, and I think we're still trying to figure out if he can be that. They got him some good wide receivers. His running backs this year, I mean, obviously he had a lot of injuries there, so I wouldn't take too much away from Lamar Jackson in terms of trying to figure out what his offense can do. And their defense is still there. They're not as good as the old school Ravens that I grew up with, but I think they're doing pretty good. I don't think there's any reason to panic. I don't think this was the year for them after all the injuries they started off with in the beginning of the season. So I think it was more of a panic. I think panic is. I don't know if panic's the word. I think they should have expected this, knowing with all the injuries that they were coming into the season. That is going to be that's hard. Trying to be not a one-dimensional team that just runs because you had so many great running backs in the beginning of the season. Now you're trying to force your quarterback to figure out how to pass, how to get into the passing game. And you saw it in this game. He's one-dimensional. He's waiting a long time in the first half of the game, but then right then the Steelers figured it out in the second half of the game. They were able to stop the running game, the Ravens running game, pretty effectively. So yeah, it's what it is for the season. For sure for the Ravens.
Yeah, I just don't have too much faith in this Ravens team. Obviously their defense got hurt quite a bit this past Sunday, and in terms of the Ravens offense, I think they were exposed in that Dolphins Thursday Night Football game, and we saw it in full display these past couple games as well, playing the Browns and the Steelers. Lamar Jackson is not a traditional pocket passer. His running ability opens up his passing ability, not vice versa. So when you try to limit his running ability quite a bit, at least the opposing defense, try to keep him in the pocket, try to make those throws, you know, the offense kind of falls apart. It's not quite as good. He's forcing throws to targets that aren't there. And his receivers let him down a little bit. There were some drop passes as well. Personally, I don't know if panic button is the word, like Oscar said also. But I would say that I think this Ravens team's peak is kind of similar to what it's been at least, this last year, as well as I think the first year with Lamar Jackson at quarterback, replacing Joe Flacco. I see them as a second round exit at best, but I don't even know if they'll win a playoff game at this point because I feel like their offense is kind of figured out. As long as your defense blitzes, then Lamar's not going to do all that well.
Yeah, I agree with both Oscar and Connor. I mean, they're just one-dimensional, and I mean, it's just kind of the deal with building around a guy like Lamar Jackson. It's not completely his fault. The receiving core is just not there. Obviously, he's lost all his weapons in the backfield. And really, this team goes as far as he's able to take it. And right now, defenses are just able to zero in on him. And, and it's not even a complaint on the offense, too. The defense, to me, did not play well in this game. And Big Ben is not anything close to what he used to be. Yet they were letting him throw to wide open wide receivers. And that's just something you can't afford to do against him because he can't throw in tight windows anymore. We saw what happened the week before at Cincinnati. But there he was throwing to wide open receivers throughout that second half, and it made him look good. And that is going to get you beat. And if you do that against better quarterbacks, you're going to get ripped up. And the Ravens got to be careful because they're in a situation where, and it really goes for any AFC team, but really for the Ravens, considering the division they're in, you go on a losing streak, you may get knocked out of the playoffs here. And But look at the remainder of their schedule. I mean, they got to go to Cleveland, which they were just in a tight game with. They hosted the Packers. They host the Packers. They go to Cincinnati. They host the Rams. They host Pittsburgh. They've got a rough end of stretch. Like, it's not inconceivable they go on a skid to end this season. If you go on a skid here, like, let's say you lose 3 out of these 5 games, you'd end up trying to remember. You'd end up 10-7. Does 10-7 get you into the playoffs? I don't know. Maybe not. But you go any worse than that, I don't think 9-8 or 8-9 gets you in. And that's possible. Now, I don't think they're going to do that. I think they'll win at least 2 to 3, get to like 10 or 11 wins, and that'll be enough. Especially considering how inconsistent the rest of their division is. But I don't expect this team to make a deep run in the playoffs. Because, like, especially if they match up against a team like the Patriots, I don't know how much they would even score in that game. Like, they may be a touchdown, but I don't think they would score more than that in the Pats.
Yeah, I mean, it just looks like the Patriots are really running away with the AFC. Based on how the Bills have been performing lately, the Ravens, and even the Chiefs in this past win, Mahomes wasn't impressive at all and was bailed out by the defense. And I honestly don't know who's going to be facing the Patriots in the AFC Championship. I'd give the Patriots a lock for that spot. I really would. The AFC is just a complete mess right now. Even like the Bengals losing to the Chargers, I did not think that was going to happen. And
I'll say this, and this may just be a little bit of a homer, but there's reports are indicating that Derrick Henry might be back in early January. Maybe it's not guaranteed, but if he's back, and then we can have Julio Jones and A.J. Brown actually healthy for the playoffs, then it's not all around the possibility the Titans could then kind of find a late season surge, because I still think they're in a great position to win their division, especially considering that the Colts have to play the Patriots to beat that team to challenge the Patriots. And that would be an interesting game to see if the Titans can somehow be healthy at full strength against this Patriots team. Because remember, when the Titans played them last week, they were running up and down the field in the Patriots. They had 2 running backs go over 100 yards rushing. And if it weren't for 2 inopportune fumbles and failing to convert a 4th and goal at the 1-yard line, that's 20 points, a 20-point swing. I mean, that game would have been tight. So, I know things have been rough for us, but I'm not counting us out just yet, particularly of how inconsistent the rest of this conference is. Like, literally, if the Bills won last night, Titans would have been the 1 seed. So, nothing's out there in a possibility in this conference. Anyway, Leon, any other comments on the
Yeah, I'd say Lamar Jackson has improved as a passer this season, even with all the injuries. I think having 4 comeback victories this season says something, and I think he's improved as a passer. I think he's a great leader for this Baltimore offense, and if they had a healthy team and more receivers in the passing game, I see them playing the Patriots in the AFC Championship match. But moving on, former MVP candidate. I don't know if he's still an MVP candidate now because of injury. Kyler Murray is back after 3 weeks of not playing. The Cardinals absolutely destroy the Bears. Murray, 2 touchdowns in the air and 2 on the ground. The Cardinals are the first team to have 10 wins in the NFC. They are now 10-2. Guys, what do we think about Kyler Murray maybe making a comeback for the MVP award? I know there's Jonathan Taylor. I know there's Tom Brady. But Connor, we're going to get your thoughts on Kyler Murray and this Arizona offense and what's the future for him in terms of the award department?
I mean, I think this MVP conversation is, like I've said in the past, like it's been kind of weird because at least every quarterback has had like at least like one really bad game. And that's the same with Kyler. Like I think he threw for like 2 picks in that Green Bay Packers game. But I will say this, like the Cardinals are probably the most consistent team in the entire league. Like their only losses, like of course that Packers game, which I think was pretty evenly matched. And then like their other loss was like
Carolina.
Carolina, where I think Colt McCoy started and then he got injured and then like they started some guy from like the CFL or something. I don't know. But yeah, Kyler's definitely one of the best QBs in the league, at least this season. He's really made a huge step from year 2 to year 3. The Cardinals, I mean, obviously they were moving on from Josh Rosen, but Kyler is an absolute stud. Obviously a threat on the ground, but he's an amazing passer as well. Of course, DeAndre Hopkins being his wide receiver 1 helps out quite a bit. And his run game is really good as well. But I think on award that's a lot of it's based on the win column. I think Kyler Murray could still be a contender for it. But at the end of the day, I do also believe that him being injured for I think 3 games, 2 to 3 games is going to hurt his, MVP campaign quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't think you can miss that many games and be the MVP. Especially considering that they did go 2-1 without him, so it wasn't like they went on just a complete skid. I think they go 0-3. Colt McCoy was just objectively terrible. Then maybe you have an argument, but obviously, and plus, just from a numbers point too. I mean, he was only 11 of 15 for 123 and 2 touchdowns. Had 59 rushing yards for those 2 additional touchdowns. And I know the weather wasn't great, but still, the MVP part of it is a numbers award, and the numbers just weren't great, I think, for this particular game. But, obviously for the Cardinals themselves, it's pretty crazy to think that they're the only team right now with double-digit wins. And looking out, obviously they got a huge game this week against the Rams. But, you can win. But if they win this game, they pretty much got the NFC West on lock. And then after that, you got the Lions. They host the Colts on Christmas Day. They have the Cowboys and the Seahawks. So I don't think they'll go undefeated the rest of the way, but I do think they'll win at least 3 of these to get to 13-4, which I think it's gonna be enough, more than likely. I'm just trying to think, because the Bucs would have to go undefeated, which it's very possible they have the Bills, Saints, Panthers, Jets, and Panthers again. So it's very possible they go undefeated. So for the Cardinals, you probably want to aim for at least 4-1, maybe 5-0. But yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to see what happens. And shout out to Sports Host for saying great show, Lauds. Oscar, what do you think about the Cards?
Well, in terms of Kyler Murray getting the MVP, I think he was up there before he got hurt, and maybe you can still make the argument, kind of like how Leon said. But Nick, you make a good point where the team still made up for his loss for not having Kyler Murray. I think it speaks more. The Cardinals' success speaks more to Cliff Kingsbury than it does about Kyler Murray and his performance this season. Just the ability to still get wins. You lose your star quarterback. You lose your starting running back in Chase Edmonds. You have James Conner step up. You have wide receivers. I forget the third wide receiver's name. Moore, is it Ramondre?
Yeah, Rondell Moore.
Rondell Moore. I mean, you have this depth, and at least on your offensive side, you have so much depth that you're able to have the next guy step up and be successful. It speaks a lot more, I think, maybe towards the coaching staff and the ability to the players themselves to step up without Kyler Murray this season. And it's actually been really cool to see. It's been easy to root for that team for sure.
I think if I could see the Cardinals have one more thing, I know Larry Fitzgerald hasn't officially retired yet. But I wish I saw him on the Cardinals still. Just an amazing player he was. Even as he got older into his 30s, he still played well and contributed a lot. I wish they signed him for this season.
It's pretty interesting too to think about this team, because it feels like everyone's picking either the Bucs or the Packers, but they are the team with that inside track to the 1 seed. I mean, it's possible they are being disrespected, because I've been saying this all year. I don't trust Cliff Kingsbury ultimately. I don't really trust Kyler Murray late in the year, and we haven't seen them in the playoffs yet together. It'll be interesting to see if they can break some narratives, because it just feels like even though they've had such a great season, they haven't earned that respect yet. And maybe it's just because you're going up against your aura of guys like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, Of course, I feel like the Cowboys, I mean, I know they're there, but I don't think anyone's seriously taking them as title contenders at the moment. So I'll be interested to see if the Cardinals can find their way back into the respect of the public, because it just feels like no one's talking about them, even though they are the NFL leading team at the moment.
Right. And also, they haven't had, like, great wins. Like, the biggest win they had was against the 49ers with Colt McCoy. That was, like, the biggest margin of winning. So I think that's why. Like,
Yeah, because they blew out Tennessee week 1, which was absolutely, like, surprising to me and really impressed me. But since then, it's just been like, oh, they're continuing to win. But, you know, it feels like they're never the team that looks the best in a week. It feels like there's another team that looks better every single week. Like, they've never been the team that's like, oh, yeah, this is clearly the number 1 team right now. So it's interesting to see what they do come playoff time. All right, Leon, I know we got one more story to get to.
We got one final story, a game that we commented on in our Colorcast debut. Nick and I commented on last Thursday's Cowboys versus Saints game. We all predicted the Cowboys would win, and they did. They got out of that 2-loss slump that they went on, but the Saints have lost 5 straight. Even with starting Taysom Hill, and he had over 100 yards rushing, 4 interceptions he had. I know he's Oscar's favorite player, but it's really been tough for the Saints. It really has. But I think they should give Jameis Winston a shot next year, because they were 5-2 with him, and now they're 5-7. But I also don't see them making any run for the NFC playoffs with Taysom Hill. I know that it's a lot harder for the NFC to perform compared to the AFC, considering how tight the race has been there. But the Saints really have no shot in making the playoffs. And Nick, let's talk more about that experience and talk more about that Cowboys game and how even Michael Gallup's big touchdown catch. Let's hear more about that.
It was a lot of fun, obviously, doing that and just kind of sitting there breaking down the game. And we were not true to the best. I mean, Taysom Hill just fell apart there in the fourth quarter, because it was really smart what Sean Payton was trying to do with him. They were running him a lot, just trying to keep him out of trouble. But when he had to throw late, it didn't work. So I agree with you. It's not going to work long term for the Saints with Taysom Hill. But Jameis Winston absolutely should get a second chance next year, pending his health, because he was transitioning into a game management quarterback that couldn't win football games. And I think he could totally do that again next year. So we'll see what he can do. Obviously, they're also missing Alvin Kamara, because they just don't have any big play weapons. Like, if Alvin Kamara was still healthy, I think it could work with Taysom Hill, honestly, because, like, you just would run a lot, and you would really be able to at least have some sort of offensive consistency. But without Kamara, it just isn't going to work. Now on the Cowboys, and I know a lot has been made about Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, he's just irrelevant right now. Like, he is not running the ball well. He isn't getting consistent yardage. He's not the best running back on the team. I mean, Tony Pollard is way better. That 60-yard rush he got for the touchdown was so impressive. Like, he was able to hit the right hole, and he was just off. Like, he was fast. Like I know. I think I looked away for a second because, like, we were talking about something else. I look up and Pollard's just gone. Yeah. So with the Cowboys, I would say trade him, but I don't know who's going to take on that contract. Like, who wants to take on the $90 million running back contract? I mean, it's proof that you really shouldn't pay 99% of running backs that. Like, maybe the outside of Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor, no one deserves that at the running back position. And I mean, they really just need to play Tony Pollard a lot more. He makes the offense more dynamic. They need to get their wide receiver core more healthy. I think Dak is not at 100% himself, because he looked off on some throws, but they're getting there. And, you know, in terms of, are they championship contenders? I'm still not seeing it. I just don't feel like they have the consistency. They have a huge test this week against Washington, a team that's been playing really well this week, or this month. They've won 4 straight games. It'll be interesting to see. But Connor, Oscar, what do y'all think about the Cowboys and Saints?
I want to ask Leon, he was broadcasting the show. He missed, like, how tough Taysom Hill was in this game. And think you're like being harsh. You're being so harsh to this guy.
I mean, being tough. I mean, being tough is great,
he
but
was
like
bruised up.
this is the NFL though. You have to produce. I admire toughness,
He's your only
but
quarterback.
toughness doesn't win games. Toughness wins,
Sean
but
Payne's fault asking him to make those passes. You should just told him, "Hey, run it." The guy's got over 100 yards running on the ground. Let him go. It's working. Why are you making him putting himself in to be make unsafe decisions with the ball when you know he's got a hurt finger? Tom Brady doesn't throw with a hurt finger. Tom Brady passes the ball to the runner. Taysom Hill's a runner. Let him run it. Let him pass it off to Mark Ingram. Let him do the job that he's got to do. You got a guy who's hurt. Why are you guys?
Well, I mean, you can't consistently win the NFL like that, though. I mean, you could win in college like that.
That making that adjustment in the game. The guy's hurt. Have a different game plan. You know, you're not gonna be able to throw the ball every drive, maybe 5, 6, 7 times. You're gonna have to run more often than you are gonna be throwing the ball effectively. Especially if the team knows you're not gonna make any Hail Mary throws with Taysom Hill with a broken finger, with a hurt finger. It's gonna be short passes. Your defense automatically changes. They adjust to that. So just figure it out, you know. But yeah, I thought the game was gonna be more fun. I agree with you, Leon. They lost. The experiment didn't work. Yeah, I think they still have a chance. Jameis Winston isn't coming back anytime soon. Taysom Hill's the guy for right now. They have a couple games to figure it out. Kind of what you mentioned, Nick, in terms of Zeke Elliott. Yeah, just play Tony Pollard. He's the guy. He's doing the job right now. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. He's being the most supportive piece right now in the offense. And hopefully, you know what? Take the pressure off Ezekiel Elliott. He is a superstar running back who's not getting it done. I think that just adds more pressure to the player when you're asking him to keep doing what he can't do. And there's a lot of season left. Maybe they get him back for the playoffs when they probably need him the most, you know. And who knows? Pollard gets first place. Maybe he does get hurt. You're going to need Ezekiel Elliott again. So running back is definitely a position where there's a lot of rotation because of injuries. And I think if they just back off of him for a little bit and give him a chance to figure it out, maybe he does. They get back the offense that they need.
I think it's interesting. Whenever they had Winston, I didn't really see much of Taysom Hill on the highlight reel. I thought he was honestly underutilized as a receiver and as a hybrid player. I really don't think they used him that much. And I know that contract, there's a big difference if he does play quarterback or receiver. But, yeah, they should keep Winston as quarterback and try to find ways to implement Hill more, maybe give him some goal line packages in the end zone. I'm hoping the best for the Saints, and we'll see what happens. And Connor, I have one question for you. What if Ezekiel Elliott was traded to the Bills? How would you react to that news?
Zeke Elliott would probably be worse on the Bills than the Cowboys right now, honestly. Even though Zeke's kind of fat and he's not all that great anymore, not gonna lie, not to be mean or anything, but
it insulates him from the cold.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he.
Sports coach with the we want to buy Oscar and Mike for Christmas.
I appreciate all donations. Thank you very much.
I also appreciate donations. But yeah, I don't think Zeke Elliott would be much better in Buffalo. Not only taking on his contract, which I think is 4 years for $90 million, while we're about to pay Josh Allen the big bucks in these coming years. I think next year, we'll be paying him his fifth year option money, and then after that, it's going to be the whole $258 million, alongside signing an extension for Diggs and some of our other playmakers, trying to bring in free agents. I think that would hurt the Bills more than help them.
I still think he has potential to maybe make a comeback in this league. We just have to find the right team for him, the right spot with an offensive line. But the Cowboys O-line isn't bad, but I just think he needs a new home. I think Pollard is just ready to step up and take over that backfield.
I don't know if it's the last year for Zeke Elliott in Dallas. I think it's very possible. But I think if he doesn't get better next year, or if he completely nosedives this year, then he'll be cut pretty soon. Obviously he's not the same player from 2016 and 2017 when he was averaging 11, 10 yards a carry. But that's the thing with running backs. No matter how high you are on the totem pole in terms of your talent as a running back, like your shelf life is going to be short. I mean, look at Todd Gurley. Like, he was an absolute stud when he was coming out of college, coming out of Georgia. And he was like offensive player of the year 3 years ago. And then after that, his career took a complete nosedive. And even teams that were pretty injured at the running back position wouldn't sign him. Now, Todd Gurley and Zeke Elliott aren't exactly the same case. Considering Todd Gurley has like arthritis. But it's not a question that Zeke Elliott's level of play has declined quite a bit. And as we're seeing Tony Pollard kind of take the reins at the running back position for the Dallas Cowboys, his future in a Cowboys uniform is quite dicey, especially considering that he signed a contract for that Jared Jones money. It's going to be tough for Zeke to really break out again.
And I think it wouldn't be as much trouble if it weren't for Tony Pollard outperforming him on the same roster, and he's still on his rookie contract. So I'll be interested to see how they handle him whenever his rookie contract ends, because I doubt they'll make the same mistake twice. Although it is Jerry Jones, so he may be tempted to make the same mistake twice. But hopefully he'll have men around him saying no to that. Anyway, thank you, Leon, for those key stories. But now it is time to talk about the unfortunate side of the NFL, the injury report. And with our injury report, Oscar Orengo, what were some of the biggest injuries of the weekend?
All right, thanks, Nick. Let me make sure everybody in our audience can hear me. We're going to start off with the Vikings. Adam Thielen, kind of WR2 for that team. Suffered an ankle sprain. Didn't seem like it's being very serious. He might miss 1 or 2 weeks. KJ Osborne would be the wide receiver that gets the benefit the most from him getting hurt and gets to step up from the W3 position to the wide receiver 2. Washington football team lost Logan Thomas again to injury after missing him. Had him in IR earlier in the season. He had a knee injury. It seems like he'll be out for the season due to an MCL and ACL sprain. Ricky Seals-Jones, we saw him fill in for him early in the season, but interesting enough, Ricky Seals-Jones was hurt because he was also injured, and John Bates filled in for him. He actually had a pretty good performance for the day, so it'll be kind of a toss-up up to now. First of all, if Ricky Seals-Jones comes back healthy, and if there'll be a competition between both guys for the role to fill in the void from Logan Thomas. With the Las Vegas Raiders, Kenyon Drake got hurt. He's backup running back behind Josh Jacobs. He seems to be out for the season. This kind of just further establishes Josh Jacobs as the bell cow for the team. So doesn't really change very much in terms of the dynamic of the offense. For the Philadelphia Eagles, Miles Sanders suffered an ankle sprain. Interesting to note, they have a bye week coming up, so he may not actually miss too much time. But if anything, Boston Scott would be the player that benefits the most from this absence from him missing games, missing time. And those are my major injuries for the week. You guys have anything to comment on those guys or anything to add?
Yeah, definitely the Miles Sanders one's interesting because that's a type of injury that can linger for a while. And considering the Eagles are in that playoff race, I mean, they're literally in the playoffs right now, especially considering the Washington, especially with the way that Antonio Gibson is emerging as their bell cow running back. That's not a loss you want to have right now if you're Philadelphia. And Boston Scott has been it's been inconsistent. And obviously their quarterback situation is in complete flux now, as we have a full-blown controversy with Gardner Minshew lighting it up for Philadelphia. It's very interesting where that team goes, because I doubt we're going to see much more of Jalen Hurts for a while, even when he does get healthy. Yeah, so that's going to be one team to watch here, because I don't know if they on paper really have the talent to make the playoffs, but with as bad as that division as the NFC is, anything can happen.
I'd say the Logan Thomas injury is definitely the biggest. With Washington winning their past 4 games and Heineke just playing great, emerging as a leader and the franchise quarterback for that team. That's really going to hurt them going into the matchup against Dallas, but I do think it is possible they can make an upset. I still think Antonio Gibson is a strong running back, an emerging player, and even last season, Washington football team, I think in their second matchup against the Cowboys, absolutely destroyed them.
Yeah, like Leon said, I think it's very possible that Washington could pull off the upset. I personally wouldn't pick Washington over Dallas in this matchup, but Heineke's been playing pretty well. Their running game's pretty solid too. With Antonio Gibson, as well as Jared Patterson, undrafted free agent out of the University of Buffalo. He's been playing relatively well with his limited touches. And their defense is somehow playing better without Chase Young. Like I said last week, I don't think that's anything bad about Chase Young. It's just somehow the Washington football team, at least these past couple years, have ended up playing their best football. I think in November and December, when that playoff stretch is coming up. Who knows if they'll clinch the 7th seed? But I do think they'll be able to scrape by some wins over these next 4 weeks.
I don't know how Jared Patterson went undrafted. Like that, just insane. I mean, he ran for over 400 yards in one game, and I know it was against Kent State, but doing that in any game on any level is unbelievable. And I'm just glad to see he's found a spot with Washington. He's producing because this guy to do that at any level of college football it takes a talent, and Jared Patterson is definitely that talent for sure. And definitely with that J.D. McKissick injury, it's opened up a lane for him in relief of Antonio Gibson. But yeah, moving on to fantasy football, Oscar. It just seemed like this week was extremely high scoring. Like a lot of the teams in my league were scoring very high numbers. As there were a lot of shootouts all over the place. Who were some of the top performers?
Good for you, Nick. I'm going to congratulate you on your high-scoring team for the week. It wasn't like that for everybody. I know some of my teams didn't do as well. But definitely a lot of quarterbacks did really well this week. On top of our top 5, we got Kyler Murray leading the line coming back from injury. 11 passes for 123 yards, 2 touchdowns, scored 2 more touchdowns on the ground, rushes for 59 yards. He did have 2 fumbles in this game, but he seemed to recover. Still a top guy in the game, and the Cardinals walk off with a win. George Kittle comes in the tight end group, 9 catches, 181 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Tom Brady, 38 passes for 368 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Justin Herbert for the Chargers, actually, they do really well. 35 passes, 317 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Taysom Hill, unfortunately, in the Saints' loss, he got 264 yards in the air, 2 touchdowns. He does throw for 4 interceptions, 11 rushes for 111 yards on the ground. Even though this doesn't show up really great in the box score for the Saints, Taysom Hill did a lot of really good work for his fantasy managers.
So Oscar, obviously in the wake of all of these performances that we saw, who are your waiver wire picks for week 14? For a lot of people, the end of the regular season. So a lot of people perhaps fighting for playoff spots. Right. Maybe they're fighting for buys. Maybe they're just trying not to be the last seed in the consolation ladder. Who can help you in those critical last week matchups?
Well, it's hard because there aren't a lot of players that showed up this week. So there's the depth of what your waiver wire looks like for this week is pretty rough. But Taysom Hill, he's still out there. He's definitely the kind of player that's going to be greedy for the ball. He's going to make a lot of plays. Champagne's giving him a lot of trust. So as long as he takes care of the ball, doesn't throw as many interceptions, hopefully doesn't fumble, he can be a good streaming quarterback coming in. Boston Scott, again, the Eagles have a bye week in the next week, but he might be a good filler in if this Miles Sanders injury takes a long time. And also Matt Breida, he's now with the Bills. He actually seems to have overtaken Zach Moss in the running back by committee position, so he may actually be able to benefit if Devin Singletary gets hurt, or if there's a game where he can actually take advantage of kind of like the passing down plays, which is what Matt Brady is kind of taking over that role for the Bills right now. So those are three of the guys that could make a difference for your team coming up the rest of the season.
Yeah, so the staff pick for this week in terms of fantasy, JaMychal Hasty, running back for the San Francisco 49ers. It's looking like Elijah Mitchell and Jeff Wilson Jr. are going to be out. So, obviously we know Kyle Shanahan does that running back by committee, but JaMychal Hasty may be one of those guys. So if you're desperate, if you're in a really between a rock and a hard place, maybe that's what you turn to shore up your running back depth. But any comments on fantasy football from Connor or Leon?
Matt Breida, I'll speak to him. He helped me out in fantasy. I think a couple weeks ago playing the Saints. He caught a touchdown. I think he scored like 13.5 points in terms of fantasy points. But also, I do think that Matt Breida, he brings some speed to that running back room that it's like severely lacking in Buffalo. But also like he had somewhat limited touches in this past Patriots game, which I don't really understand, but it is what it is. And also even with his speed, like you can only do so much with this Bills offensive line, like I was saying earlier. So I wouldn't expect him to score too many points. I think he's a good player to, keep on your bench. But starting him, it can be inconsistent.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Oscar, for the injury report and fantasy football recap. But now, folks, it is time to make some money. Best segment every single week here on the Instant Review podcast. It's time to go over the sports betting lines for week 14. Connor, what 4 games are you looking at?
All right, so as per usual, I got 4 games that I'm going to be talking about. First off, I'm going to be talking about this Thursday night matchup. It is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are favored by 3 points, and the over-under is 44. And now, the Vikings just lost in Detroit. Just think about that for a second. Okay. Now, while Kirk's stat line was great as usual and Justin Jefferson absolutely killed it, their soft defense didn't do that much aside from a couple plays. Now, the Steelers are on a hot streak, and they just beat the Ravens. While I expect it to be much tougher for the Steelers defense in this upcoming game, I'm still going to pick the Steelers since they're underdogs. So I'll take the points, and I'm trusting the Vikings much less than usual after that loss. Now, this next matchup that I'm going to be talking about, it's going to be the Los Angeles Rams versus the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are favored by 3 points, and the over-under for this game is 51.5. Now, the Rams just bounced back this past Sunday and beat the Jacksonville Jaguars after going 0-3 their last 3 games. But this Cardinals team is a much different beast. They're the first 10-win team in the league. Murray is one of the best quarterbacks this season, in my opinion. And their defense caught 4 picks this past Sunday in Chicago. Now, while Stafford is much better than Dalton, and he won't play that bad, something that we've seen in this season, he'll go back to his old ways in Detroit and not be as good as we thought he'd be in Los Angeles. Not that he's playing bad at all, but I'm just saying he can be inconsistent at times. So I anticipate that he'll throw at least 1 interception. I'm going to pick the Cardinals to win, and they'll clinch a playoff berth with this win. This next matchup, it's going to be an NFC North showdown. The Chicago Bears are going to play the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are favored by 12.5 points, and the over-under is 43.5. Now, the Packers are one of the best teams in the league. In my eyes, they're even better than they were last year when they clinched the NFC North and the 1 seed. Now, the Bears are coming to Lambeau, all but eliminated from playoff contention now. And no matter who they start at QB on Sunday, they're probably going to lose. So I'm going to pick the Packers to win and cover. And this last game that I'm going to be discussing, the Los Angeles Chargers. The New York Giants are playing the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are favored by 10 points, and the over-under is 45.5. Now, while the Chargers are somewhat inconsistent, they can charger it up quite a bit. They're kind of the AFC Falcons, as Nick Hill likes to say. They beat up a pretty good Bengals squad this past Sunday, and they reminded everyone that they are a real playoff contender in the AFC. Now, meanwhile, it's looking like the Giants are starting Jake Fromm on Sunday. There's not much else to say about that. Sorry, Leon. Chargers win and cover. And those are my 4 Week 14 NFL matchups.
You know what the Giants should have done? They should have went back a couple weeks and traded for the MVP candidate himself, Mike White. I'd like to see Mike White on the Giants over Jake Fromm, over Mike Glennon, even over Daniel Jones at this point. They should have made the trade a couple weeks ago before the deadline. Yeah. What a
and we're talking about the football of Mike White, not the Florida Gators coach who just lost to winless Texas Southern, by the way. So that's not that Mike White. But yeah, I think the Jets Mike White would have but what? Yeah, but definitely I think that Mike White would probably be your best option for the Giants. But looking at all,
right, we just had to change clubhouses, like right across the hall.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be hilarious. What if someone got traded during the game from the Jets to the Giants? Like literally, you just had to walk across and then get into the other jersey and just go out on the field and play for them. It'd be like baseball, but
I just don't know who for who.
Yeah, it had to be a very specific circumstance for that to happen. But I think the one thing I want to ask you about, Connor, that over under 51.5 in Rams Cardinals, it seems high to me. I'm feeling the under in that by quite a bit. It feels like this is going to be a rather low scoring game.
Personally, I don't know if it'll be low scoring. I mean, we all know that Safford can throw the ball deep. And OBJ has been playing like pretty well at least last week. He really bounced back after a rough season starting out in Cleveland, and then his first couple games in Los Angeles he lost. And also Cooper Kupp is still pretty good. I think the hype's died down a little bit, but he's still productive for the Los Angeles Rams offense. Meanwhile, the Cardinals, honestly, I think this could still be a pretty high scoring game. But if that does happen, I'd say the Cardinals would score in like the 30s and the Rams would maybe score in the 20s. But yeah, I probably would take the under in this as well, Nick.
Yeah, so it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. I mean, between the Bears and the Giants, they're both double-digit underdogs. To me, I feel like the Bears, like if you had to go with one of the double-digit underdogs and bet them to cover, I'd go with the Bears. One, because it's a larger line, and two, Andy Dalton is better than Jake Fromm, but it's just bastard. It's not a good week to be a Georgia Bulldog on this show. If any Georgia fans are watching, especially after the way they got pummeled the other night in Atlanta. But
imagine if Jake Fromm throws like 4 touchdowns against the Chargers. That'd be crazy. But
it'd be the first time.
To be honest, I don't even think they score a touchdown in this game. Not one. They haven't scored a rushing touchdown since week 7. I see this game being worse than they played against the Dolphins, to be honest.
Yeah, I would expect that too. I expect the Chargers to win that thing by like 35 to like 7. Like it should be a beatdown outside of the Chargers going Charger, which is the only thing that concerns me about that game. But yeah, I personally would rather bet on the Bears. I wouldn't be shocked, honestly, the Bears kept it somewhat close in Green Bay. Just, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, none of the Packers or Chargers should lose in those games. But any other comments on the betting lines?
I actually think the Rams and the Cardinals are going to be a high-scoring game. I think the Rams kind of found themselves against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like that was definitely like a tune-up game for them in terms of like figuring out where their offensive pieces were. They got Odell Beckham involved. They got Van Jefferson involved. They got Cooper Kupp involved. Their tight ends got in the game. The running backs got to do something. We get to see Sonny Michel. So that was good. And then for the Cardinals, same thing versus the Bears. We get to see Kyler Murray come back and do his thing and dominate on the ground, dominate in the air. So I think both teams kind of have those pieces already figured out. It's just how they're going to look in a game. And I think it's definitely going to be a shootout, I think, between those two teams. Giants and Chargers, no comment. Giants are going to it's going to be rough. It's going to be real rough for the Giants.
Yeah. I will say this. I've noticed this recently. Why are the Monday night football games all of a sudden better than Sunday night football games? Like, have you noticed this recently? Like, I feel that the last couple of Sunday night games have like been terrible matchups. Like this week at the Bears Packers, yesterday Broncos or this week Broncos Chiefs. Meanwhile, the Monday night games have been maybe not the best games, but at least they've been interesting matchups. Of course, this week at Cardinals Rams, which is going to be a massive game to turn the NFC West. So it's just interesting how NBC has been getting kind of screwed recently on their scheduling. But thank you, Connor, for the sports betting segment. Now it's time to start wrapping up the show with the Player of the Week segment, where we all choose a player that we thought absolutely had a standout performance in Week 13. Leon, who did you pick? And you might have seen this player in person.
Jalen Waddle. Miami fans love Jalen Waddle. He broke the 84 catch rookie record set by Jarvis Landry when Landry was a rookie. He broke that record, and now the record is Anquan Bolden's 101 catches in a season. I think Jalen Waddle's going to break that record. I know he's been overshined by Jamar Chase because of Chase's crazy rookie season, but watch out for Miami to make a deep playoff run and the Tagovailoa-Waddle connection moving forward in the next couple of years, if they do decide to stick with Tua.
Yeah, I got to watch that guy at Alabama a couple of times. He's insane in person. So he's definitely a receiver to watch moving forward. He's got to stay healthy, though. He did suffer a big ACL injury in college. So hopefully he'll be able to stay healthy and have that connection with Tua moving forward. Oscar, who is your player of the week?
Well, I'm going to keep beating on the Taysom Hill drum for a little bit more. Again, it was great to see him finally get on the field. And I don't think he's the answer for the Saints in the long run. I mean, he's like 31, 32 years old right now. So he's actually going against a lot of odds right now. Just the fact that he's a starting quarterback and he's just doing that. But yeah, tough player playing through a hurt finger. Knew he couldn't throw it. When he couldn't throw it, he was able to run it. Unfortunately, he did have 4 interceptions, but it was really cool to try to see like what that offense could look like if he actually had some success. So yeah, Taysom Hill.
All right, Connor, who is your player of the week?
Now, my player of the week is Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson. He's been an absolute stud these last couple seasons that he's been in the NFL. And in Detroit, while the team still lost, he caught 11 passes for 182 yards and a touchdown. This season so far, I think he's caught 78 passes for over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. I think he's established himself to be the wide receiver 1 on the Vikings and one of the best wide receivers in the entire league, hands down.
Yeah, another wide receiver I would like to shout here for my player of the week, Chris Godwin, 15 catches. He had 17 targets against the Falcons. Tom Brady was looking his way early and often, 143 yards. He didn't score a touchdown, but just the amount of extension of possessions that this guy had throughout the day was massive. And as someone who just traded for him this week, I was glad I made that move because Chris Godwin was spectacular. Obviously, he isn't going to get 17 targets every single week, but he definitely showed that without Antonio Brown, he is going to be the safety valve for Tom Brady. And we'll see if he has any more massive performances like that. Obviously, very talented and a big part of why the Bucs offense is very, very dangerous. All right, so for that Steelers-Vikings Thursday night game, we all sent in picks to Leon. And Leon, you're going to share those picks.
Yeah, just loading up the picks right now, and I think we finally go against each other, some of us. So, Nick, I know you have the Vikings win 21-20. Loading up Connor's response right now. Connor goes for the Steelers 20-17. Oscar 24-17 Steelers. I will go Steelers 27-20. I think we're looking at a downfall in Minnesota after that embarrassing loss. And somehow, some way, Ben Roethlisberger continues to find wins in Pittsburgh.
This is where I disagree, because Kirk Cousins is allergic to being 500. He's right now 5-7. At some point, the pendulum's got to swing the other way, and I don't trust the Steelers' offense. Give me Minnesota. Skull Vikings.
That's what I said about Kirk Cousins after that loss. I think like the week before in like San Fran. That's the main reason why I included that Vikings Lions game in my bets. But they let me down. So I trust them even less than I did before, man. Like that defense is so soft.
If we're many other teams, I would agree with you. But I don't trust Pittsburgh at all either. So it's two teams I don't trust. And it just feels like it's going to be a weird, goofy game. And I'm feeling the Vikings. So, but someone had to go against the grain at some point, and it's going to be me. Give me the Vikings.
I mean, Cousins is underrated, and he does put up good numbers. I think even last season when Dalvin Cook was like a top 2 running back in the league, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Cousins threw for 36 touchdowns, right? And nobody even really thought of that stat line. But like I said, a Minnesota downfall. We finally go against each other in the game pick. So I'm really looking forward to the result of that game. Hopefully it's a fun one. I do see a lot of interceptions happening. Just really feeling it. A couple fumbles.
Like if Minnesota had an average defense, it'd be a playoff contender. But, that's why you got to replace Mike Zimmer. Minnesota.
Big Ben just keeps finding ways to sneak into the playoffs.
Yeah, because that's what America really needs, to watch the boring Steelers offense in the playoffs. I really hope they don't make the playoffs, but we'll see. Anyway, any last points or questions before we wrap up the episode?
Steelers gone to Super Bowl?
The Steelers are gone to I can't yell like you're an injury, so
but they honestly do have a lot of good pieces around them. I think if they actually get a good starting quarterback with Najee Harris, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, this team could have a higher record easily. So I don't think their problems are as big as we make it out to be. But we should thank Big Ben for all he's done in Pittsburgh. Even as a young quarterback, he was able to take them to the Super Bowl twice and win the Super Bowl. But we'll take them 3 times, but they won twice. I think it is his last season, but Connor, I know you have to say something, so let's hear it.
I'm not going to say it. Nick knows what I'm about to say.
Yeah, but obviously, that Ben Roethlisberger had a fantastic career. You could kind of move on. I'd be curious to see who they get. Now, that's somewhere where I could see Russell Wilson get traded to. That would make a lot of sense to me, because I think they have a lot of great defensive pieces. I think the right quarterback makes the Steelers back into a Super Bowl contender. And honestly, I would just like the Steelers to be like fun to watch again. So like a guy like Russell Wilson would definitely make that happen. And I think Mike Tomlin as a coach deserves to have someone more capable at this point in their career to work with a quarterback, because Mike Tomlin to me is a fantastic coach. And right now he's doing the best he can with what he's working with the quarterback position. So we'll see what happens. Definitely out of the possibility that they make the playoffs for sure. I just don't trust their offense.
I hope he doesn't go to Pittsburgh. I really hope Russell Wilson comes to the Giants. And a lot of these like Facebook forums and posts, the fans want Russell Wilson. Doesn't look like we're going to get Aaron Rodgers. I think he's going to stay in Green Bay. I brought up the Matt Ryan idea. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. But if Russell Wilson comes to the Giants, we get a couple of offensive line pieces, it'll be fun to start watching games again.
I will say there was a lot of Aaron Rodgers to Pittsburgh propaganda like popping up like last month. Like I saw a lot of mock-ups with Aaron Rodgers in the Steelers jersey. I know like Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers have a lot of respect for each other. I think he'd be a good fit. I really hope that he doesn't go to an AFC team, like especially not the Steelers. But I think he would be a good fit there.
I definitely would
stay. He's going to stay in Green Bay. I think he's going to call it a career there. but I do see him playing for longer than most say he's going to play. Some people think he's going to retire. I see him playing for 3 or 4 more seasons. The guy is just consistent. He just plays really well whenever they have the ball, and especially at home. Nobody could really stop the Packers at home.
And like he won't say it outright either, but I think the factor of Tom Brady continuing to play and win Super Bowls is weighing heavily onto his mind. Like, because you watch him on Pat McAfee, and like, he'll never say it, but if you just read the context of some of the stuff he says, it feels like Tom Brady is motivating him in terms of I got to get at least one more.
I do think this is the season, though. I think if there are the Packers and the Buccaneers in the NFC Championship matchup, like you said earlier in the podcast multiple times, Nick, I do think this is destiny that the Packers go to the Super Bowl and win it. What do you think, Oscar? I want to hear from you.
I still don't think Russell Wilson goes into the Packers. I think it's more likely he comes to New York or he goes to Miami. But yeah, I don't.
No, the Rodgers part. What do you think about Rodgers? You think the Packers could beat the Buccaneers if there was an NFC Championship matchup? And do you think they could win the Super Bowl, the Packers?
Packers defense might make it interesting, but no, I don't think so. I think it'd still be Bucs.
I mean, I don't know, the Bucs secondary is they've been beaten up all year. They're not great. I think Aaron Rodgers would have success throwing the football, and they have 2 really talented run backs. I mean, A.J. Dillon has been a revelation this year. He has been fantastic the past couple of weeks. Aaron Jones, of course, we know how good he is. I think the Packers present all sorts of problems. Like Aaron Rodgers, unlike in previous years, doesn't actually have to be perfect this year to win the Super Bowl. He's had to be perfect a lot of his career for the Packers to win. And of course, he's human, right? He can't be perfect. But finally, they've built a team around him that's good enough to where he doesn't have to be perfect himself. And I think that's going to play right into his hands.
Yeah, I think you say the same for the Bucs too, though. I mean, we saw it last week how the Bucs didn't need Tom Brady to be the guy. They had Leonard Fournette, they got Rojo, and they were able to get out a win. And then this week they were able to use Tom Brady more often, and they were able to get the passing game there. You still saw Leonard Fournette being active. But yeah, there's just so many weapons. But
I will say though, like that Tom Brady's always had a ton of help to an extent, right? Like he's either always had a lot of weapons around him on offense or a fantastic defense. Yeah, and obviously for a long time had the best coach potentially ever in Bill Belichick, and we're seeing right now how much of a genius Bill Belichick is.
Right.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers has not had that. I mean, he had Mike McCarthy for most of his career, who to me is an average coach. Had a terrible defense for most of his career in terms of support. And for a large part of his career, didn't really have great receivers. Now, it's probably the best receiving core he's had. And then obviously the best running back support he's had by far. And easily the best defense he's had supporting him. Yeah. So I think things are finally going in his favor. So I'll be curious to see if that's enough to overcome Brady's supporting cast in Tampa Bay. And that's not ignoring whether the Cardinals or the Cowboys or even the Rams can overcome one of them. But right now, to me, I definitely think we're heading for a Packers-Bucks rematch in the NFC title game.
I think it's going to be interesting. Sorry, Connor. Their starting left tackle and left guard are out for the season, and they're both Pro Bowl players. David Bakhtiari is obviously an all-pro left tackle, but they still continue to find success. And I think Jair Alexander is back soon at cornerback, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, Connor, go ahead.
As long as Kevin King doesn't blow coverages multiple times and let Tom Brady shred him with wide open receivers, and if Tom Brady doesn't will his defense to frustrate Rodgers, then maybe the Packers could win. Who knows? But then again, that's Tom Brady's magic in the postseason, as we all know.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin King with 2 clutch PIs.
Yeah,
that's the NFC title game too, and then inexplicably Matt LaFleur not going for it on 4th and goal, like down 8 with like 3 minutes left. That also didn't make any sense.
That's just what makes Tom Brady the GOAT, you know.
Yeah, inside joke there, but yeah. Lots. I mean, seriously though, like literally just watching that all unfold, because like I read all that stuff where I'm like, okay, he really can't be getting all of that luck. But like literally from the Washington game all the way through the Super Bowl, it's like everything according to plan. Just it was unbelievable.
And he threw 3 picks in that game. Like,
Right.
it does not happen with
And then
any other
and then
quarterback.
the 3 touchdown drives against the Saints combined were like 60 yards.
Yeah.
So
Short
I mean,
field merchant.
that was an up. That was honestly like, I'm surprised they won that, even though it's Brady in the postseason. But the Saints crushed them both matchups in the regular season, and then
I wasn't surprised because like Drew Brees was not very good towards the end of
well,
last
it
year.
wasn't that surprising. But I mean, Drew Brees, yeah, he kind of his arm kind of ran out, and yeah, it's still different not seeing him on the Saints. But Brady wins another Super Bowl. I don't think it happens this year though, for some reason.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. I would love to see a new champion. Maybe like a Cardinals or knock knock the Titans. But that's not happening. Who am I kidding? But with all that being said, thank
Steelers.
you.
Go ahead, Steelers.
The Steelers, hey, you never know what could happen. I have no idea who's going to win the Super Bowl this year. I mean, that's what's going to make this fun. It feels like every week we have a list of different teams who are going to win Super Bowl. But we're going to ride this thing out, though, for the rest of the year. Thank you so much for following NFL news with the Instant Review podcast. We will see you again next week for all the NFL-based news, injury reports, fantasy predictions, and much, much more after week 14 of NFL action. For Oscar Orengo, Conor Kennedy, and Leon Taryan, I'm Nicholas Hill, and thank you so much for watching the Instant Review podcast. Take care, and we'll see you next Tuesday night at 10 p.m. on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.